Welcome to another episode of On the Call with Jake Marsh. My name is Jake Marsh, and we have an absolutely electric episode for you today. It is the one, the only, CBS Sports' own, Jon Rothstein. That's right, this is only August. March is a long ways away, but as usual, we dive into Jon Rothstein's career, pick his brain on the NCAA Tournament expansion, get some life and career advice from him, talk about some of our stories from the first time we met. So a lot of fun coming with Jon Rothstein. And then we're going to bring back audience Q&As. We have a few great questions coming up towards the end of the show. And of course, our ending segments. It is That's Wild of the Week and Tip of the Cap. All right, so another episode of On the Call with Jake Marsh starts right now.
It's caught! Touchdown! It's time to dance! Oh my goodness! Gloves are off! 7 for 3! Bang! Oh, that is swatted away! Shefflin brings the boom! This is Huck. A step back 3! Oh yeah! The shot of a lifetime! Barstool Sports! Arizona Bowl champions! It's good! It's over! He got it! He got it! He got it! It's 6!
Alrighty, folks, Tuesday, August 11th. The NFL preseason is here, and we are just moments away from sending it off to Jon Rothstein. And again, college basketball is just a few months away, but Jon is a big-time mentor to me. I've gotten the chance to know him over the last handful of years. He's a big advocate, which I really appreciate. We talk about that and the Jake Marsh, the future tagline that he created and how much that meant to me and how that came to be. So that was really cool. But it was really cool getting the chance to speak with him one-on-one on this platform. We've obviously been back and forth a handful of times over the years, but man, when you look up grinders in this business, he is at the top of the list, right? Because we'll get into some of the anecdotes, but that man just hustles, and he'll be at a random school's summer practice just because he wants to get better at his job and be the best college basketball reporter that this country's ever seen. And I think a lot of people would agree that he is just that. So I really respect Jon Rothstein's work ethic and hustle. So we talk about all of that. But I mentioned the NFL preseason starting. That Hall of Fame game was absolutely electric. It was great to hear Tirico and Collinsworth back in the booth and seeing the graphics and hearing the music. And it certainly helps when the game comes down to the final play. So we've got a full slate coming this week, but I know we're still a few weeks away until the NFL regular season kicks off. And we're probably going to keep it football-centric guest-wise for the most part after this week. We might have a special surprise coming next week, but definitely the last few weeks of August and early September. So I'm excited about that. But all right, let's not waste any more time. It is Jon Rothstein. It is Jake Marsh on the Call with Jake Marsh. Here we go. All right, it is now time to welcome on a very, very incredibly special guest. It is the one, the only, CBS Sports' hungriest insider, of course, for college basketball. It is Jon Rothstein. And Jon, I just want to get ahead of something and let you know that if major sports or world news happens to break in the next 30 minutes, you have my permission to pause the interview and you can let the world know that Prairie View A&M and Morehead State have agreed to a home and home starting this fall. How does that sound?
It all depends on what comes in on my phone. This was all an innocuous process that started once very, very organically. And now whenever something major happens in the world, SIDs and director of basketball operations across the country want to make sure they get the word out about those key non-conference games.
How many of those scoops do you have in your drafts ready to go? Or do they all tweet you in real time or text you in real time?
I would say a large number. I would say a large percentage of them, come in real time. But you can't just start unloading stuff. You have to be very selective.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think that's been a really fun storyline on social media over the summer, and you've obviously bought into it, right? Especially with the World Cup, all these major goals when LeBron signed. And I think that's awesome, right? Because a lot of people, and we'll talk about criticism in a little bit. A lot of people think Jon Rothstein, he's just a cyborg when it comes to college basketball. But no, I think you buying into this shows a different side of you, which I think people really appreciate.
I think the one thing a lot of people tend to forget, Jake, is that this is all supposed to be really, really fun. Yes, we want to take our preparation seriously. Yes, we want to obviously represent the companies that we work for with professionalism and class and reliability. But this is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be having fun while we do this. So if we can smile and chuckle and be happy a little bit more, I think it will all be a lot better off.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So you and I's relationship has gone back almost a decade now, and I'm going to show you a picture. And for those who are listening, you can watch on YouTube, but it's a picture of me and Jon. Yeah. And Jon, do you remember the specifics of this picture?
That was the game St. John's was playing Vermont as part of an MTE. Vermont won the game on an Anthony Lamb pull-up from the left elbow at Carnesecca Arena, giving St. John's the epitome of brutality.
Finds Lamb, 9 seconds, 8. Lamb left wing, 6 seconds. Lamb, 5 to go. Pump fakes. Lamb at the free throw line. The shot is good! 1.9 remaining. Lamb, straight cash!
That's right. And that was the first time we ever met. And we were sitting shoulder to shoulder. The way the media row is set up at Carnesecca, it's really tight. It's an old school, old fashioned gymnasium. So you could basically hear the whole broadcast, and it was really cool getting to meet you in that moment and it all leading up to a buzzer beater.
Yeah, no, that was a really, really fun game. And that's, I think, the thing that just makes college basketball so different from other sports. I know I'm really biased, but the pageantry that exists when you can get upsets of that magnitude, especially in this climate where obviously things are so tilted towards the power conferences and the schools with more resources, you can still on a given day get a major upset. We saw that obviously in the NCAA tournament with High Point beating Wisconsin. I know people who you've worked closely with in the past took that one on the chin, as well as a number of other upsets over the past couple of years. We won't get into that, but that is what makes college basketball the greatest sport that we have in our society. And I'm just really, really excited that we're less than 100 days now to starting another season. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I know a lot of people, especially this offseason, have talked about the fact that Cinderella is dead. As you mentioned, High Point is still winning and advancing in the NCAA tournament. I had Jim Boeheim on a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned we might not see the UMBCs or FDUs happen again because of the climate. Do you agree with that, or do you think once in a blue moon it could still happen?
I think an upset of that magnitude, a 16 beating a 1, is hard to forecast. But, I mean, we have to look at, the way things are. I mean, we have a very, very short memory. I mean, 3 years ago, we had a Final Four where we had Florida Atlantic playing San Diego State. And also that year, you had an FDU beating Purdue. Now, I know NIL has been magnified since that NCAA tournament in 2023, but that FDU team wasn't even good enough to win the Northeast Conference tournament. Merrimack won the Northeast Conference tournament, but was not able to qualify for March Madness due to the transition rule. And then we saw, obviously, FDU beat Purdue, a team that won the Big Ten regular season title and the Big Ten tournament title and had the National Player of the Year in Zach Edey. So to me, that is unequivocally the biggest upset in the history of the NCAA tournament.
No doubt. And I think that transition rule is absolutely ridiculous, right? A team, they go to D1 to play D1. If they win their conference tournament, who cares how long they've been a D1 team? They earn their way and they punch their ticket. It's ridiculous.
No, I agree with you. I think the transition rule is something that has really inhibited a lot of opportunities for players who deserve to be a part of the greatest event in sports, the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, speaking of the NCAA tournament, Jim Boeheim went on a little rant with me a couple of weeks ago regarding expansion. I know you've been outwardly against it, as has a lot of the media, but he says the goalposts keep moving because people didn't want to extend it from 16 and 24 and 48 and 64, and now people are mad that 68 is no longer the golden number. So now, here's reality. It is an expanded NCAA tournament. 8 more teams will hear their names called on Selection Sunday. Now that the debate is over, it happened. Where do you stand on it?
Well, this is what I'm going to say about that. I think it's important that we look at the numbers first. And what I mean by that is because we are going to have a new rendition of the Pac-12 starting this season, there's going to be 7 at-large berths that are added, not 8. That's the difference of 1 spot. So you're adding 7 at-large teams. Look, I am not going to be somebody who stomps their feet and tries to change something that isn't going to go back. The toothpaste isn't going back in the tube. So I am now trying to program my brain into what a 76-team tournament would look like. This is not what I would have chosen to do, not so much because of what's going to happen to the NCAA tournament. My biggest fear and my biggest concern as somebody whose livelihood depends on college basketball is what this is going to do to the regular season. Think about the games that we have really from late January to Selection Sunday with teams that are apart or around the bubble. I mean, those games are some of the most compelling games, especially when you get to like a week before championship week and then in conference tournament season. That's some of the most compelling college basketball that we have all year. All those games have now dissipated into thin air because if you are a power conference team that is not going to be able to make a 76-team NCAA tournament, I would be really, really concerned about my job security if I was the head basketball coach. I have had conversations for years, Jake, with head coaches who were trying to champion the cause for NCAA tournament expansion. And I said to them, I would not want to be a power conference coach and not make a 76-team NCAA tournament. But I'm somebody who's trying to look now at what things are going to look like from an arithmetic perspective. As I mentioned, the new Pac-12 comes into play. That gives you 32 automatic qualifiers to March Madness. That means that if the 4 power conferences, the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC, all got 10 teams in the NCAA tournament, which is 36, at-large bids, there's still 8 remaining at-large spots for the NCAA tournament. So I think we are going to see a number of these power conferences, most notably the Big Ten and the SEC, be in the mix for a dozen or so NCAA tournament bids. And I think if your other conferences, like the Big East, who are outside now the Power Four, you've got to look to be a 6-bid league or so, considering the fact that there's additional spots. And other leagues out there, like the Atlantic 10, like the Pac-12, you're going to have to be a multi-bid league. And I think, when you start adding all this up and you think about how many teams it's going to take to get to 76, the teams on the other side of that are not going to be teams, I think, that we have seen at the same level as other bubble teams in the past.
Totally. So I wanted to tackle those current events in college basketball. And even though, as you mentioned, we're still a few months away, it's exciting that it'll be here before we know. Once football starts, I feel like the rest of the offseason goes quickly. You wouldn't know because you only watch college basketball, but for most of us. But a lot of the reason I started this show was to talk about the industry and networking and all of that. And your path is fascinating when it comes to this, right? Because you went to a small school, Ithaca, and you had no connections in the industry to start off. You started off by winning a contest on ESPN Radio, and it allowed you to start a domino effect of buying a radio time slot for a show in New Rochelle, right? So would that age Jon Rothstein, I assume early 20s, have ever envisioned this Jon Rothstein becoming reality?
Well, I still look at where I am in my career as somebody who has a long way to go. So I don't feel like I have achieved what I have set out to achieve. And I appreciate, that those kind words and introduction. I'm somebody who's very process driven. So I try not to look back at the assignments I've gotten, the stories I've gotten, the interviews I've gotten. I'm focused on what's next and the process to get there. I think one of the things that really, really helps when you don't have any connections and you don't have anybody who's able to make a phone call for you, and you're not in a certain place out of the gate because of somebody who put you in that position, is you don't have to live up to anybody else's expectations because you are who you are. And that way, if you get what you want, you'll have deserved it. And if you don't, you'll manage. And I think there's value in that. Jake, so much, we all try to be perfect in everything you do. I'm sure there are games where you feel like, you might have called a perfect game, or there might be a call or two you want back, which is all natural. I don't think there's any play-by-play guy or any analyst who doesn't feel that way. But the process of getting there is sometimes, I think, much more rewarding than the moments where maybe we one day dreamt to go. And as I've gotten older, I think about the times where there might have been setbacks, where there might have been things that happened outside of my control, jobs I didn't get, things went a certain way with, a broadcast that I was frustrated with. And those are the things that I think ultimately shape you into the person and broadcaster you are today. So I think I knew right away what I wanted to do. I was in talk radio for a while because when you're starting out, as you know, you want to try and maximize whatever opportunities that you get. So I remember in 2010, I'd worked for the MSG Network for 3 years as their college basketball guy, and I'd also been a fill-in talk show host at the ESPN Radio affiliate in New York. And my boss at ESPN Radio offered me middays in LA solo, 10-1. And it was either that or take the opportunity to be in a situation where I could join CBS, at that time, CBS College Sports. And, that's been the best decision I made in my career.
No doubt about it. And I think that's where we're wired similarly, in the sense where, yes, I'm really grateful for the opportunities I've gotten. However, I'm still so freaking hungry to keep rising my way to the top that, yes, I can take a moment to pause and look back. Wow, I'm so fortunate I got the chance to be on the #1 sports podcast for 5 years. I've broken in with CBS Sports Network and even tossed to you at halftime in some games, which was a really cool full circle moment. However, I'm still hungry to get more and more reps, to keep working on my craft. So I think it's a balance between being grateful for the past, but also staying hungry for the future. Because if you get complacent, anyone in this industry is replaceable, and someone might be coming from behind to get you, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tony Bennett had a great saying. I remember interviewing him when they first really started to set their standard at Virginia. This is before they won the national championship. And he used the phrase grateful but never satisfied.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way really to put it. And, one of the things that I've always taken a lot of pride in is being the hardest working, most informed person who covers college basketball, traveling the country on my own dime to see different teams practice. And that's something I will never stop doing. I was, in New England last week seeing multiple teams practice because it gives you the ability to sharpen your knife by being out there, visiting with coaches, visiting with players, seeing teams practice. So I enjoy that aspect of this. I think it was Phil Jackson who said the journey is the reward. That's something that I really, really try and remember each and every season as I'm starting another journey on the road to the Final Four.
No doubt. And I think it's interesting because you can control the effort you put in, right? You can't control what people think about you. I can control what I put on my play-by-play demo reel. I can't control what the decision makers at each of the networks think about it. But what I can control is keeping my relationships going, reaching out to people like you and staying on top of people. But there is a luck aspect that comes into it. And I talk about that with everyone who comes on this show because you need to catch a break at the right time. But knowing that you still do control some things in terms of effort you put in and relationships you're making, I think that's important to even remind myself as well.
Yeah, no question. And there is going to be, times in this process, whether, you're seeking your first major job or, you're at a place for a while and there's changes in management or people have, certain decisions that are made. I had a boss once early in my career give me really, really sound advice. He said, sometimes decisions get made in broadcasting that have absolutely nothing to do with you. And that's something that's sometimes hard to swallow, but it's the truth. And the bottom line is this, is you want to be a person of success. Everybody wants to be somebody who's successful and has great, great success and is on a complete upward trajectory. But with that said, it is more important to be somebody who adds value to a network that you're reliable, value to a network that you have great powers of assimilation and you can work with different people, value to a network that you're a great human being and people want to be in your company. These are things that are all incredibly important. Nobody wants to work with somebody who literally comes into a room and everybody wants to roll their eyes and hopes that that person leaves.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. And you can know everything about a random team starting five, and I can nail the final call of a buzzer beater. But if we're not nice people and hardworking teammates, that negates everything else. And it's just as important, if not more important, who you are off there than what you are doing for your actual role, right?
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
The human being you are is so important in this business. And, I've come across a lot of people who aren't good human beings and are vindictive people and, are people that, you can't believe sometimes they're behaving the way they're behaving. But that happens in this business. But it's always important, as I sometimes tweet, to take the high road because there's less traffic. And that's always, to me, been the best course of action in any circumstance.
Yeah. Let's talk about criticism a little bit. I brought it up earlier, but I know we're both on social media. We're both fortunate enough to have very large followings. And with that comes sometimes people who don't approve of what we're doing or what we're saying, right? But yeah. I think the social media side's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's cool in that you have a big platform and people are constantly intrigued as to what you're bringing to the table. But you could tweet on an 80-degree day in Central Park and the sky is clear that the sky is blue and people will be coming for your heads either way. How do you deal with criticism on a daily basis?
Don't really look at my mentions. I stopped years ago. I mean, I just think it's a healthy thing to do. I think mentally, if you can get into a rhythm where you're posting and then you're kind of putting your phone away, not to say obviously that you're not, cognizant that, I want to get this content out or that content out, but if you can eliminate scrolling from your regular routine, your mental health is going to go to a completely different level. So criticism is the name of the game. I think when you are somebody who wants to be, obviously in the public spotlight, giving your thoughts, giving your opinions, giving your preseason rankings on a regular basis. But if you are somebody, again, who wants to be a public figure, if you are somebody who wants to be in a situation where people value your opinion, that comes with it. And you need to embrace that. But you also understand that the opinions of people that you never met or the opinions of people who don't know you have absolutely no bearing on your life, emotionally at all. And I think that's one thing that's really, really important.
That's totally well said. I think an interview on PMT a few years ago, you mentioned that anytime you're meeting with the team, even if it's for the first time or the 20th time, you like to put on a suit, right? Because you want to let it be known that you are all business, right? What do they say? That dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And I think that's really important, right? When I walked into my PMT interview 7 years ago, I wore a suit. I know I could have gotten away with not wearing a suit at Barstool, but what does that say about your professionalism and the way you carry yourself when you're speaking to these student athletes who you're going to be interacting with?
Well, you have no opportunity in life to make a second impression. That's really important. But I remember, now almost 20 years ago when I was working for ESPN Radio, one of the jobs I had there, and I was, fill-in host and did different things. But I was the update guy on Michael K's show when he was doing Afternoon Drive. And I remember he said to me one day that Brian Williams and his son, who is now, I think, doing news at a station in New York, were coming in to sit in on his show. And I remember when I was trying to break in to broadcasting and I would be doing the weekend shifts on ESPN Radio, I would drive down the West Side Highway and I would see this big billboard of Brian Williams when he was doing NBC Nightly News, and it said "Reporting America's Story." And I remember when I heard that Brian Williams was coming to sit in on Michael K's show, I said to Michael, if Brian Williams is here, I have to wear my best suit. I have to be ready to go. So there I am, doing updates on the radio every 20 minutes, and I have a suit and tie on. And I could tell that he kind of got a kick out of it. And, we talked for a while that day, and, he was breaking my chops a little bit. And then I bumped into him maybe a year later. I was meeting a friend for a beer in Rockefeller Center. And we talked for a minute, but he said to me, "Where's your suit? I didn't recognize you." So to me, that kind of taught me that, again, you're representing yourself, your brand, your presentation, you're representing your family's name, and you're also representing the company that you work for. And for me, that's CBS Sports. So, again, you would never have a second chance in life to make a second impression.
No doubt. And I think
second chance in life to make a first impression.
Yes, of course. I think too, we mentioned the competitiveness of this business. You have to think of creative ways to stay ahead and stay sharp and show that you want it. And I think something as simple, we just spent 5 minutes talking about wearing a suit. I think it's important, right? Because I always say to myself, I'd rather be overdressed than underdressed, because then you're not anxious or looking over your shoulders, and you doing that really puts that to rest.
Yeah, it's a mark. As you can probably tell, I'm an avid reader and somebody who's always like accumulating wisdom from different writers, different authors. And I think it's Mark Twain who said you can never be overeducated or overdressed. He was spot on.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk about your catchphrases. It's a big part of your brand, of course.
Yeah.
And I want to see, first off, where are we in the off-season creation? Do we have any new ones that can you throw us a bone and tell us one new one? Or are you saving it for November?
I'm saving it for November. There will be a couple, one of which you will be, extremely interested in. But
Okay.
when I was, thinking about obviously my career path, one of my great mentors and friends is Frank Isola, who covered the Knicks for a long time, is on Around the Horn, is on NBA Radio with Brian Scalabrine, and he was somebody I always looked at as this guy was a great writer. He got inside the NBA. He also did some TV. And he was, to me, was somebody who, again, was accomplished in print, and then obviously, has morphed into obviously a big broadcasting career. And I always just felt like, you had to do something to cut through. And other people, obviously had different methods. I think when you and I were growing up, or at least I was growing up, it was always the columnist who wrote the, strong opinionated column that seemed to cut through. But, the world changed with social media, and it changed a lot because, I grew up somebody every day who couldn't wait to buy the New York Post, to buy the New York Daily News. And now things are considerably different when you look at how things are consumed. So I was thinking, if I'm going to be somebody who's a non-player and non-coach, you can't approach this as somebody who's going to be the tactical guy and talk X's and O's. And obviously, it's important to have things from a news perspective. That's obviously important if you're a non-player or non-coach, but you're not going to get every story, and you're not going to be in a situation where you have every take that hits. So I've always been somebody who has tried to reflect my personality entirely on social media. And I'm somebody, again, who was like, I'm doing this and I take it really seriously, obviously, but this is supposed to be fun. So if I can incorporate an extension of myself to social media, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And, these catchphrases have become part of my persona, part of the fabric of college basketball, and there are no signs of slowing down. It can't be stopped. It can't be forced, though.
Absolutely. What the heck did I do to earn one? Because that was one of the biggest honors of my career so far, was when Jon Rothstein, about a kid out of school, a couple of years out of school, is tweeting Jake Marsh the future. It was really a big honor.
Well, I think I was on PMT once, and we were, your name came up, and I don't think you were there during that episode for whatever reason, probably because you were calling games for Vermont.
Yeah.
And Big Cat was just like, hey, do you know Jake Marsh? And I was like, I don't. He goes, you guys should connect. You'll be friends. He's like, he's an up-and-comer in a play-by-play. And I was like, Jake Marsh, the future. And I was just kind of like, it stuck. And like, I think I came up with, I think for Big Cat, it was, America's roommate. And then for PFT, it was America's drinking buddy. Then I was like, well, I have to come up with one for Jake, too.
That's really amazing. I still have friends who text me every time they're wearing the shirt, whether it's to sleep or at the gym. One of my friends even wore it to my 30th surprise birthday party a few months ago.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
spreads.
It spreads. It certainly spreads. I know you got to run. One last fun topic. Let's talk food, specifically in New York City. I know you're a Campanola guy. The tri-pasta appetizer?
The best.
What's your Mount Rushmore New York City restaurants?
Oh, God, that's so hard. I mean, you can't just pick four.
I know. It's tough.
I mean, I would have a hard time just picking four Italian restaurants. I mean, I am somebody, I think for the most part, I don't love everything, but I appreciate, all aspects of food. I love the element of a New York City diner. I love being able to order breakfast for dinner late at night when I'm up watching, the Mountain West or a game on the West Coast. I love Philippe Chow for Asia.
Oh yeah.
I love a great bronzino or grilled calamari or octopus if I go Greek. Obviously, I love Italian. I mean, I'm somebody who, again, is a huge, huge fan of food, especially brunch. I've really gotten into brunch over the years, like the French toast at Sarah Beth's is second to none, especially if you get a popover to go with that. So this is an endless conversation. We could do 30 minutes just on food.
I know, yeah. Philippe Chow was actually a PMT Sunday night specialty when we were in New York. It was fun. Have you had the French toast from Sadel's?
From Sadel's, I have not.
Okay, that's amazing. And what was I gonna say? Best brunch. My favorite brunch is Bubby's.
Bubby's. Okay, yeah. I can say it downtown.
Yeah.
There's one in LaGuardia Airport.
Yes,
right now,
there is in the Delta terminal.
Yeah, that'll put you out though wherever you're flying if you have that before.
Yes, absolutely. Well, John, have you made up with your neighbor? I know you got to run. Have you made up with your neighbor?
No, things are still a little bit shaky. That big year for the Mountain West coincided with a lot of late games, so I shouldn't even say hi at the elevator anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, thank you so much. And the season is just a couple of months away, and I really appreciate your support. You're a big mentor to me in our business, and it means a lot. And I look forward to staying in touch.
You got it, Jake. We sleep in May.
All right. Thank you once again to John. I am really relieved that in that 30-minute window, nothing earth-shattering happened in terms of current events via politics, sports, news, entertainment, whatever you call it, because we would have had to pause the interview so we can learn about two teams who have agreed to a home-and-home series. But luckily, I dodged one there, and Jon Rothstein was kind enough to join me without any pauses or intermissions. All right, time to wrap up the show with our closing segments. We've got Tip of the Cap and That's Wild of the Week. But first, we've got a few Q&As. And when I posed this question on social media Monday morning, I said it could be literally about anything. Broadcasting, golf, life, food, whatever. So we got 4 great submissions, and we'll start off with a broadcasting one. It is broad, but I think it's good to say on this podcast, just in case people are tuning in for the first time. And if you are new to this podcast, I say thank you for giving us a shot. What are your goals ahead of the 26-27 season? Well, there's a short answer and a long answer to that. Call more games. I want to call more games. I will call games wherever, for whoever, whatever sport, at whatever level. I am here to improve. I am here to get better, and I am here to prove to whoever is out there that I am willing to do whatever it takes to call more games and work my way up the ladder. I'm going to work my butt off. I just need the opportunity. I can guarantee you that. It is just such an honor to have the platform that I have right now on this podcast, social media, and get some of the opportunities that I've had so far. But similar to what I talked about with Jon Rothstein, I'm so hungry to keep on going and take it to the next level. And I'm going to work my butt off in order to do that. I'm going to keep working my connections. I'm going to stay on top of the decision makers. And I know whoever gives me a shot, I'm going to take advantage. So I really appreciate everybody who's given me a shot so far in this very competitive but rewarding and thrilling business. But I'm looking for more, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So if you know anybody who might need someone to call a game at any level, football's coming up. I would love to get involved in football this season. Please reach me via DM on any social media platform. I really appreciate your support, but I'm ready to go. I will be on the next flight out if you need somebody last minute to call a game, and call more games. That's the goal over the next year. Next question. How does it feel to be on the John Mackey Award Committee? Who do you think will have a good year at tight end? Thank you to the person who submitted this. Yes, if you saw it on social media, I'm honored to be part of the John Mackey Award Committee this year, which is the award for the best college football tight end. And to have a small say in who wins that award at the end of the year, it's really cool. It shows that people believe that my opinion holds weight, which is pretty wild. But tight ends are such a fun position to watch. A little fun fact, when I played after school football with my friends, not tackle, I wasn't good enough for that, but some people would call me Jimmy after Jimmy Graham, because I would just run a button hook, go for 7 yards, turn around, make a catch. Just consistent, good hands. I'm not going to make any OBJ type plays. But yeah, shout out to Jesse, my friend, who called me Jimmy. And then that was the end of that. So in terms of guys I'm looking out for, this is August 11th. So obviously it's preseason, no stats yet. But you can't ignore the tight end factory that is the University of Iowa Hawkeyes, right? I'm looking at DJ Vanami as a guy who can potentially win this award. He's following the footsteps of some greats like Dallas Clark and George Kittle, Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson. And you put on that black and yellow and you're a tight end, the bar is set really high. I think he has what it takes to be in that conversation, along with Terrence Carter Jr. from Texas Tech and Tre'Davious Green. Those are my three on Tuesday, August 11th that I'd be looking out for. But obviously, anyone can take care of business and put themselves on the map. But I'll be watching college football this season, and I'll be watching the tight end position closely. So excited for that. Thank you for the question. A couple of golf ones to close out. Favorite golf course you have played so far? For me, it's got to be TPC Sawgrass, right? It's an absolutely insane greens fee. I believe it's close to $1,000 now because I freelance for the PGA Tour. I was able to get a discount, but it is incredibly expensive, but it was awesome. I mean, you go up to 17. The grandstands weren't up when I was there, but you're driving in your cart, and then suddenly you look at the GPS thing in your cart, and Mike Tirico's voice starts playing, and they're just starting to play highlights of the players on the 17th. So that was really cool. I've gotten to play it a couple of times. I'd say Torrey Pines South, in terms of views, that's probably the most scenic course I've ever gotten to play. And then courses that aren't on tour, Glen Oaks on Long Island. My cousin belongs there. That place, it actually used to host an event about 5 or 6 years ago. That place, it is a fantasy land. I love that spot, and I'll be up there in a couple of weeks. So Glen Oaks, I'd say, is up there for ones that aren't on tour. Panther National, really cool. So there's a long list, but those are the ones that come to my mind first. Favorite club in the bag right now? Man, you could ask me this question every day, and I'd probably have a different answer every day. Right now, I think I'm rolling the rock really well, or as well as I could be. I've been really trying to focus on avoiding the 3 putts, and I feel like I'm doing that. Bryce Cope, who I've taken virtual lessons for, you should follow him on Instagram and TikTok. He gives great advice. I saw a video of his a few weeks ago, and it basically said, you should just be practicing putting inside of 8 feet and then some lags outside of 30 feet, because the percentage of making a putt between 10 feet and 30 feet is so low that it's like, what's the point? But if you can really hammer down those putts inside 8 feet and make a handful of them, you're really going to shave off some numbers on your card. So shout out to Bryce. So I'd say I'm rolling the rock really well putting. Right now, the driver, I don't understand what's going on. Hole 1 fade, hole 2 draw, hole 3 down the middle. That's where it gets frustrating, right? And I feel like I'm not changing a thing. So I might have to get another lesson soon and get that consistent ball flight track down. So those are the Q&As this week. Thank you to everyone for their submissions. We will now wrap up the show with our 2 usual segments. It is Tip of the Cap and That's Wild. And let's give a tip of the cap. This is a kind of unorthodox version of Tip of the Cap. It's not a broadcaster who you may have heard of, but it's a guy who stepped in a broadcasting booth last week and absolutely made a name for himself. And it's a Philadelphia Phillies fan named Lewis Kolb. He grew up in Detroit, dreams of becoming a broadcaster. He then spent $22,000 for an auction to do play-by-play for the Phillies radio broadcast for 1 inning, and he absolutely destroyed it. He was so good. It was so impressive. I'll put in a minute of his broadcast right now. Let's hear it. I mean, at first, I did a double take, and I think a lot of people did. Is this a joke? Is this guy faking it? But then you see in the Twitter comments, people can back him up. That's really what his voice sounded like, and he had his moment, right? He's he worked as a PA announcer for his college hockey team, then took a sales job in LA, which required a lot of driving, which meant a lot of time listening to Vin Scully, which is awesome. He was then auditioning to be the PA voice for the Philadelphia 76ers, and then he spent $22,000. What a voice. And he absolutely crushed it. That was awesome. So shout out to Lewis Kolb. Dream come true getting to do one inning, but he says the money was well worth it. And after that, I guess maybe audition. Who knows what will come out of it. That was really cool. So tip of the cap to Lewis. All right, wrapping up with That's Wild of the week. We've got one that's a little bit old, but I bookmarked it the day after I recorded last week. It was about the Hall of Fame game that we mentioned earlier. Carson Beck started the game, and someone named Graham Coffey, who is from Dog Central, he said might be the first guy ever to throw the last pass of a college football season and the first pass of the next NFL season. He finished the game with the University of Miami versus Indiana. That ended the college football season. And to start the next football season in the NFL, he was drafted by the Cardinals and just so happens to be the starting quarterback for the first preseason game. So he had the shortest offseason in terms of competitive action. That, folks, is wild. Another one referring to the Hall of Fame game. The referee was veteran Craig Rolstad. He started his NFL officiating career in 2003 as a rookie field judge and made a force-out call on Josh McCown to Nate Poole on a potential touchdown. It was the final play of the regular season that would then, after that call, it would put the Vikings out of the playoffs and the Packers in. It also took the Cardinals' first-round pick the next year and moved it from first overall to third overall, and that third overall pick became Larry Fitzgerald, who was inducted to the Hall of Fame last week. So the guy who was officiating the Hall of Fame game on the weekend of Larry Fitzgerald's Hall of Fame induction somehow, because of one pivotal call, allowed the Cardinals to make that pick in 2004. That is wild. One more for you. The play-by-play broadcasting camps has created a few awesome clips. They had that viral kid who named every single, I believe, NFL team's record in a certain year. They also had some great shots of Ernie Johnson giving advice to young up-and-coming sportscasters. They found the kid who had one of the most iconic memes in internet history. The LeBron James kid. Does that ring a bell?
LeBron James, LeBron James, LeBron James, LeBron James.
And then he started speaking to the kids on what this meant to his career. So we found the LeBron James kid.
When I was a kid, I made a viral Vine video that went viral for saying LeBron James' name. LeBron James. It gave me the opportunity to announce a starting lineup one time for the Kings and Cavs. And that's kind of what got me into this whole broadcasting, sports, talking about sports and stuff.
Obviously much older. So to that, I say, that's wild. All right, that will do it for this week's episode of On the Call with Jake Marsh. Thanks again to Jon Rothstein for taking the time. Thanks again to all of you for watching or listening. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube, please subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to Apple or Spotify, please subscribe. If you subscribe to all three, send me a screenshot. I'll give you a shout out on next week's episode. Next week, still working on the guests. I have a few options in mind depending on how the dominoes fall. I think people will really, really enjoy it, but I don't want to make any guarantees. So we'll see. And stay tuned, but I'll be back here next week. This was another episode of On the Call with Jake Marsh. My name is Jake Marsh. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time.
James.